when you are deciding to do a PhD, one of the top considerations is what university you should go to do your PhD. Now, one of the first things people think about is, well, should I aim for one of the top universities? Should I go to Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, Harvard, MIT? Is that where I should be aiming for? And getting a PhD from these really well-known institutions is a benefit to your career, no doubt. Now, I have seen a load of people that are clever, that are driven, that are also not in those institutions. However, the people that have ended up in Oxford have ended up with academic positions. I have seen a correlation between a top university education and PhD and getting an academic position all over the world. Now, this is obviously because there is some sort of prestige that is sort of like placed on doing a PhD in these highly well-known, really historic institutions. And, it's great if you want to go into academia. Anywhere in the world, if you say, I've got a PhD from Oxford, you are kind of absorbed by the academic system wherever you are. But there is a cost that people don't talk about. And I've spoken to professors and graduates from Cambridge and Oxford in particular, and there are a few things that you need to think about. It isn't all, roses in Oxford and Cambridge, and we'll talk about that in this video. This video is brought to you by my newsletter. Go check it out at andrewstapleton.com.au/newsletter. The link is in the description, and when you sign up, you'll get 5 emails over about 2 weeks from the tools I use, my TEDx talk, the podcasts I've been on, and more. It's exclusive content only available for free on that newsletter, so go sign up. Okay, so there is a cost that is associated with doing a PhD at a really well-known top institution. And I think that is that everything gets amplified. The good gets amplified and the bad gets amplified. And that's because, you are in an institution with the best minds in the country. The amount of pressure that you feel on yourself to, go through an entire PhD course and system may be amplified, and you may put yourself under a lot of pressure and stress to do particularly well in an institution. Also, at this high level, the competition is much higher. Now, I was at a conference where I gave a lift from the conference to the airport to a professor at Cambridge University, and I did ask them, I was like, what is it like to be a PhD student at Cambridge University? And they said there's no doubt that there is a lot more pressure and also competition. You are among the brightest people in the world, the most privileged people in the world, to end up in these, in these fortunate postdoc and PhD positions. And it is an area of high competitiveness. There's no doubt. One of the worst stories I ever heard was from a graduate of Oxford University, PhD, and he told me that people would actively sabotage other people's notebooks and lab books. So there were 2 students who would have to lock away their lab books, because otherwise, if they left them out, the other one would sabotage it by changing the numbers, deleting things, ripping out pages. It was just insane. And therefore, I feel like it's worth it for a career perspective if you get to the end, but it can be a really, really turbulent road if you do a PhD at these very competitive institutions. And also, the one thing I must say is that the professors at these institutions, I have heard some horror stories about the sorts of things they expect from their students. Now, along the lines of getting 2 students to compete for the same PhD, being unavailable, they consider themselves gods of the academic world, and with that comes ego, and then with that comes a lot of unfavorable conditions that they put their PhD students under. I'm not saying it's all of them, but I feel like once you kind of get to the top of the top, it's only going to cause horrible personality traits to come out. And that is also a huge consideration if you're considering doing a PhD at one of these institutions. Your supervisor dictates pretty much the entire process and how nice your PhD is. And if you end up with an asshole, egotistical, very clever, but at the same time a horrible person, then you're going to have a horrible time during your PhD, no matter where you do it, MIT or somewhere else. So does it mean that other universities are bad or lesser? Now, I don't think that's completely true, although university system is so archaic that there is still a prestige put on certain universities. Now, if you don't end up in a top university, you can still get a very, very good PhD from a well-respected university under it. Now, there are the university rankings, and a lot of times people say you need to be, in the top 1 or 2% of those universities to really be taken seriously. And I don't know how true that is either, but it's definitely easier if you go to a well-known university. So when you're considering your university, don't just think about, the prestige. Think about the people in it, the experiences you'll be exposed to, how well known a university is for a particular field. And I'll talk about my top considerations at the end of this video. But getting a university degree or a PhD from a university that's at the lowest ranking is probably not a good idea. If no one knows of the university, if it's not linked to a city, if it's not well known in a particular field even, it can be an absolute waste because, if your supervisor isn't known, if your research area isn't really if it doesn't respect this university, it can be an unnecessarily hard journey if you want to get into academia. So there's no doubt in my mind that you have to go to a university that is well known, respected in a particular field at least, and then you'll have a much easier time if you're trying to climb the academic ladder on the other side. But for getting a job, going into industry afterwards, I think there's much more important things. Let's talk about those. Now, here are my top considerations for choosing a university to do your PhD in. The first one is about the experts and the collection of people in a university system or college or department. Now, are they well known? Are they well respected? Do you want to do a PhD under them because they have great connections in the field? The way you find this out is you go to some academic papers and you start looking through the names. Are there names that pop up? Are there institutions of well-respected and known papers that pop up in the contact bit underneath their author names? That is a great way of knowing whether or not a university is respected, if it's productive in a certain area, and having experts sort of together in the same institution is a really powerful tool for making your PhD interesting, successful, and it gives you a lot more kind of breadth of knowledge and people to lean on when things aren't going so well. The second thing to consider is the experimental research setup or resources that you can access at the university. Some universities are really well positioned for doing certain experiments, whether it's high vacuum stuff, whether or not it's location, based near a wetland. If you're doing biological stuff, are they near a historical site that you're working on? All of this really matters when it comes to doing your research because you want access to the best equipment for getting the best data, the best results that you can report. So have a look at the university. Do they have a particularly good collection of equipment, resources, experts that you can kind of use throughout your PhD? So not only is it experts, but it's also the resources they bring with them. The city the university is in is also very important. Can you see yourself living in that city for up to 7 years? That is so important. I think it's something that's really underlooked. I have always chosen universities and the departments that I've been on based on the feeling I kind of get. Now, it's not the be all and end all. It's not the number one thing, but is it nice? Is it a nice city to be in? Is it a nice university campus? Can you see yourself there? That is so important at determining the success of your PhD because, are there a good amount of student services nearby? Are there a lot of activities that you enjoy doing nearby? The city and the country really make a huge difference on your experience as a PhD student. Sure, you'll be working hard in the lab or in your office, but at the end of the day, there, you're still going to have to balance that out with activities you enjoy. And there's no point being in a scungy city with a really great, research group, because outside of your research group, you're going to have a horrible time and you're going to wish you're somewhere else. So yes, consider the city, consider the country, and if you don't feel comfortable in either of those, maybe it's time to look somewhere else. The last thing that is a really important consideration is the financial aspect of your PhD. Is the university offering you a scholarship? If they are not, I would consider going somewhere else. I really do not think that getting a PhD is worth self-funding unless you have a very specific outcome and direction that you want to go in at the end. You can't just sort of like go in blindly to an unfunded PhD because it costs a lot of money, not only the tuition and that sort of stuff, but also the living costs and everything that you're missing out of. The early stages of your life is where you need to lay the financial foundations to take off later on in life. And if you miss out on that, it can really delay participating in adult life. So if a university is giving you a scholarship and it's slightly under one that you really would like to go to, but they're not giving you a scholarship, I would say that the financial stuff really supersedes the university prestige or ranking, and that you should look at making yourself financially comfortable, which will help you relax, help you be creative during your PhD, because financial stress really impacts the ability to be creative. It absorbs so much of your brain power if you're always trying to consider, work out how you'll afford this, how you'll afford your next meal, the rent, all of that sort of stuff. So if a university is offering you a scholarship, I think that is a really great indicator that you'll have a much better time throughout that time that scholarship is supporting you. So there we have it. Is doing a PhD in a top university worth it? Well, it can be, as long as you take into account the considerations, and also the prestige acts as an amplifier. Remember that. The good is really good, but the bad is also much worse because of the competition, the prestige, the pressure you put on yourself. So if you do get an opportunity to go to Oxford, Cambridge, MIT, Yale, Stanford, all of those, it's fantastic. Just think about the things in this video before you accept. But overall, I think people do better when they come out the other side of a PhD from universities with a very good and high reputation. All right, let me know in the comments what you would add to that. And also, go check out academiainsider.com. That's my personal project that I launched this year. It's got my ebook, The Ultimate Academic Writing Toolkit, that I've been getting loads of great reviews about. Thank you so much. And give this video a thumbs up. I shall see you in the next video.